Welcome to today's explainer. Look, we are jumping right into it today because we are unpacking something absolutely universally relatable: the psychology behind deadline panic. We all know the cycle, right? You sit down at your desk, you have something genuinely important to do, you actually want to get it done, and yet somehow you end up doing literally everything except the task itself. You've got to ask yourself, why do we avoid a simple 10-minute task for 3 straight days? You know it's only going to take 10 minutes. You feel this heavy, crushing weight of guilt about it. But the exact second you open that document, your brain whispers, hey, wait a minute, before we start, shouldn't we deep clean the desk? And boom, just like that, you're suddenly willing to do absolutely anything to avoid the very minor discomfort of simply starting. To really understand what's happening here, it helps to think of it as a massive dual brain debate. On one side of the ring, you've got your productive mind. This part of you is highly motivated, wildly optimistic, and always making these grand, sweeping plans. It genuinely wants to be a responsible adult. But on the other side, well, you have the lazy mind. And here is the truly fascinating part about this procrastinating mind. It never actually admits to being lazy. It never just says, hey, let's blow this off. Nope. Instead, it is incredibly clever and highly persuasive. It acts like a sneaky lawyer, creating these increasingly reasonable-sounding excuses for why the task absolutely must be delayed. It negotiates. And, spoiler alert for the rest of this explainer, the lazy mind is a master debater. So, the very first tactic your lazy mind uses is what we call the perfect plan. Your brain essentially convinces you that the reason you aren't working isn't because you're procrastinating. No, it's because you just don't have a proper schedule. So you sit down and draft something totally meticulous. 8 o'clock, start. 8:05, craft the perfect cup of artisanal coffee. 8:10, organize the desk. 8:15, mental preparation. 8:30, actually begin. What's really happening here is that you're just manufacturing the illusion of productivity. You end up spending more time creating this wildly complicated, hyper-specific schedule than the task would have taken in the first place. Your productive mind says, awesome, this time we're really going to do it. And your lazy mind just smirks and says, absolutely we are. Tomorrow. Okay, so let's say that perfectly planned start time finally arrives. Suddenly, a brand new obstacle magically appears: the cleaning distraction. All of a sudden, your brain decides that you simply cannot be expected to work in an environment that isn't absolutely pristine. First, it's the pencils. Then you're folding clothes. Then you're cleaning under the bed. Next thing you know, you've unearthed the dusty box of old keepsakes and you're crying over photos from 5 years ago. It is the sheer absurdity of avoidance. Your brain is essentially masking procrastination as productivity. You feel like you're getting things done because, hey, the room is clean. But it's really just your lazy mind throwing up an elaborate smoke screen so you don't have to face your actual work. But eventually, the room is spotless, and you finally sit back down at your computer. And right here is where we encounter the most common and, honestly, the most dangerous lie we ever tell ourselves. I'll watch one video before I start. Because, you deserve a quick break after all that intense cleaning, right? It sounds so innocent. Just one quick video to reward yourself, clear your head, and then you'll get right down to business. But as you probably know from painful experience, that single click is the gateway to the digital black hole. That quick break spirals out of control so fast, it's like clockwork. It starts at 10 a.m. with that one promised video. By 11:30, you're deep into the algorithm's recommended feed. By 1 p.m., you've drifted into totally unrelated topics, and suddenly you look at the clock, it's 3:15 p.m., and you are locked into a mini documentary titled Top 10 Weirdest Things Found Inside a Whale. You're just sitting there, totally dazed, completely confused about how you even got there, and miles away from the task you sat down to do over 5 hours ago. The whole digital spiral is literally designed to bypass your productive mind, feeding you just enough of a dopamine hit to keep you clicking next while your entire day slips away. And you'd think it stops there, but the brain's capacity for avoidance is basically endless. When the guilt really starts creeping in, your brain takes a detour, the productivity detour. Instead of doing the one single task sitting right in front of you, you suddenly become obsessed with fixing your entire life. You decide your whole system is broken, so you download 7 new productivity apps. You go online and buy 4 color-coded notebooks. You set 12 different daily alarms. You might even start drafting a brand new 5-year plan for your entire career. But actual original tasks completed? Zero. Absolutely none. You're doing the absolute most entirely to avoid doing the absolute minimum. So eventually, the day is pretty much gone, and you make one final desperate bargain with yourself, the classic "I'll start at 5 p.m. lie." You literally watch the clock. 4:58, you get your hands on the keyboard. 4:59, you take a deep breath. 5 p.m. hits, and silence, crickets. You don't move a muscle. Suddenly your brain rationalizes, actually 5:15 is a much better, cleaner time to start. Then 5:15 becomes 5:30. Then it's, I'll do it right after dinner. And finally, you just throw your hands up in the air and say, whatever, I'll just do it tomorrow morning when my mind is fresh. We constantly shift the goalposts, waiting for some magical feeling of perfect readiness that simply does not exist. We are literally running away from the discomfort of starting. But here is where the psychological story shifts completely. Because eventually, the clock actually runs out. Enter deadline panic. This is that heart-stopping, pit-in-your-stomach moment when a notification pops up, say, reminding you the project is due tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. Suddenly, that relaxed, excuse-making personality vanishes into thin air. Psychologically, the abstract concept of a task has transformed into an immediate physical threat. Your body physically reacts to this. The brain shifts out of its dopamine-seeking detour and snaps into a full-blown survival state. Eyes wide, adrenaline spiking, cue the dramatic mental music. The lazy mind shuts up completely because survival mode has officially taken the wheel. 40. Just 40 minutes. That is how long it actually takes you to finish the work. Under the intense, crushing pressure of a looming deadline, you undergo a complete metamorphosis. You become this unstoppable productivity superhero. Your fingers are typing at rapid-fire speed, your focus is completely unbreakable, papers are flying everywhere, you're practically inhaling coffee. The exact same task that seemed utterly impossible to even start just a few hours ago flows out of you with absolute precision. 40 minutes, and the whole job is done. Think about that. 40 minutes of superhuman focus. But 72 hours of avoidance? That is 3 straight days of guilt, obsessive cleaning, and weird whale videos, all to delay a task that took barely over half an hour when you actually sat down to do it. Your productive mind looks at this massive contrast and just screams, "See, we could have knocked this out 3 days ago." To which your lazy mind simply shrugs and replies, "Yeah, but then where's the pressure? We obviously just work best under pressure." Which brings us to the aftermath. The adrenaline finally fades, you hit submit, and this massive, almost comical wave of relief washes over you. You lean back in your chair and think, wow, okay, that wasn't even that difficult. You look back at the 3 days of pure agonizing avoidance over what turned out to be a really basic task, and in this rare moment of absolute clarity, your dual brains, the productive mind and the lazy mind, call a truce. They metaphorically shake hands and make a solemn, unbreakable vow. Never again. Next time, we start immediately. No more excuses. It's a beautiful, highly ironic moment of personal growth. At least, until about 10 minutes later. A simple little notification pops up on your screen, new task, reply to email. Your productive mind says, easy, let's just knock this out right now, remember the vow. Your lazy mind totally agrees, absolutely, but hey, first, you look around. The room is already spotless from yesterday. You have no software updates pending. You are completely out of your traditional distractions, so your brain instantly invents a brand new, completely absurd one. Hey, we should probably research whether penguins have knees. And just like that, a new browser tab opens and the entire ridiculous cycle starts all over again. Which leaves us with this final, endlessly repeating quote, "Tomorrow I'll become productive." What you should really take away from this explainer is that procrastination, it isn't actually about laziness. And it isn't always about not wanting to do the work. It is almost entirely about the fact that we build up the idea of the task so much in our heads, making the starting point feel so much harder and more painful than the work itself. We wait around for a perfect tomorrow that literally never comes. So the very next time you find yourself wondering about penguin knees, instead of just answering a simple email, ask yourself, are you actually waiting for tomorrow? Or are you just afraid of the next 10 minutes? And more importantly, what is your brain convincing you to avoid right now? Thanks for joining me on this explainer. Catch you next time.